In this lesson, we're going to be creating a GitHub account. We'll follow that up by creating a repository. We'll then add to our local environment the command line interface for Git. We'll generate some keys, and we'll use those keys to add them back into the online GitHub account in order for us to get access from our local environment. We'll then clone the repository we created to our local machine. We'll add a file, and ultimately, to close it all off, we will push those changes back into the GitHub repository. So we're going to go full cycle. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start by going to GitHub and creating an account. Let's go ahead and go there. I'm going to choose a username. I'll select able user, then going to enter an email, ableuserman@hotmail.com, then going to enter a password, and I'm going to click on sign up. We're going to go ahead and select the free version with unlimited repositories. I'm going to select continue. I'm then going to scroll down. We'll skip this step. And then at this point, we can go ahead and start a project. Now, once you do that, it'll ask us to verify our email address. And so I'm going to move over to my mail account. Let me go ahead and click on it. Perhaps it went under junk email. And I just saw it come in. Let's go ahead and click on that. And there should be a link to verify. Let's go ahead and click on that. And as you can see there, we're back in GitHub. I'll select start a project. I'll call it Kali. This is going to be a dummy repository. Let's go ahead and scroll down the page. We'll select the public option. We will initialize this with a README so that once we are set up, we can go ahead and clone that right away. We're going to select a .gitignore file for JavaScript for Node.js. That's what we will be doing most of the time. So let me go ahead and move to that. And I will select the MIT license. If you're not familiar with open source licenses, MIT license is the most permissive. It doesn't have any restrictions. So let's go ahead and create our repository. As you can see there, we're done. We have 3 files, and our repository is up and running and public to the world. Next, we're going to install our Git CLI, the command line interface. So let's go ahead and navigate to git-scm.com/downloads. Once there, we're going to select the Mac OS X. Okay, we have the installer. Let's go ahead and select it. Let's go ahead and navigate to where it is. We're going to go ahead and double click on it. Let's go ahead and give permissions to that. We can do that by going to System Preferences, selecting Security and Privacy, and we can say here Open Anyway. Now we can continue the installation. And this is your machine password. The installation is successful. Let's go ahead and clean up these windows here. We're now going to verify that was installed correctly by going to the terminal and typing git. And yes, you can see that it recognizes the command, has given us some feedback about how we should enter it. You can see their usage and so on. So let's go ahead and move on to the next step. Okay, let's go ahead and clear the window. And let's go ahead and enter the configuration for the user. We'll enter both the name and the email. We do that by entering git config global username, and in this case my username, if you remember, is able user. I'm going to go ahead and hit return. I'll do the next one, which is global user dot email. And my email, if you remember, was ableUserman@hotmail.com. Let's go ahead and hit return. Okay, let's go ahead and clear the screen. In our next step, we're going to generate SSH keys, and we do that by entering SSH key gen. We're going to go ahead and use the defaults. We will not enter a passphrase. You can see there that that's been created. Next, let's copy that key that we just created to the window so that we can copy it and paste it back to our account on GitHub. Now we do that by entering the following. And there is the key. Make sure you get all of it. Now let's go ahead and move back to GitHub. Here's our account. Let's go ahead and select settings. Now SSH, scroll over, and we're going to add a new SSH key. Go ahead and paste it here. And we are going to give it a title. We will call it OS 10 VM. Then we'll go ahead and save. And as you can see there, we have a new key. Our next step is to clone that repository to our local environment. Let's go ahead and move to our terminal window on our local machine. And we'll start out by creating a directory to hold our code. So I'm going to enter make directory, and I'll call it dev. Then going to move into that directory. Into this, I'm going to enter the command to clone, which is simply git clone. And then I'm going to go back to the repository that we created. This is going to be simply able user. From here, we'll select Kali, and Kali has the address for the SSH. There's HTTPS, as you can see, and also SSH. We're going to use the SSH one. I'm going to go ahead and copy. I'm going to move back to the terminal, and I'm going to paste into this window. Enter return. And it's asking me to confirm the very first time. I'm going to go ahead and enter yes. And now, if we list our files, we can see that we have a new folder called Kali. If we move into it and list our files again, you can see there that we have the files from the repository. If I list with the -A option, you can see there my git ignore file as well. I'm now going to add a file to this repository. I will do it by entering the command touch, the name of the file. I'm then going to enter something into this file. You can do that with any editor you like. I will use nano and the name of the file, and I'll simply say hello world. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Save the modified file. Yes, I will inspect it simply to make sure that I have the text that I just entered, and yes, we can see it there. Now if we enter git status, the command line here, you'll see that we've added a file but hasn't been added yet to git. So we can do that by entering git add. If you enter a period, you will add all the files in the directory. I'm simply going to add the file that I just created. Now if we take a look at the status again, we'll see that now a file has been added. Now the next step is to commit. And we do that by entering git commit -m, and a comment is required to make sure you add documentation to this operation that you're doing. So I'm simply going to say added hello.txt, and now I am going to push these changes to the repository. If all goes well, this is the moment of truth, we will see it over on GitHub. It looks like it all went through. Let's go ahead and move to GitHub and let's list our files. Let's refresh our page. And yes, you can see there that we now have a hello.txt. So that is an end-to-end cycle of setting up GitHub, pulling down a repository, adding a file to it, and pushing it back up. Make sure you do a few iterations of this for practice. And with that, I'll close this video and say goodbye.